All right. So, hey, product managers, how are you today? Hope you're doing well. We are excited to have you join us this incredible webinar, navigating the path from product management to solopreneurship with Henry Latin. Before we dive in, let's take a moment to introduce you our creative product managers group. So, the group was created in 2008 and has since been connecting product managers worldwide with high quality product management content. Uh, there are our previous campaigns. We partnered with leading giants in product management, and we are always on the lookout for new opportunities to bring you even more valuable campaigns. So, this is a new initiative of creative product managers. We are helping level up in product management with exclusive webinars, Ask Me Anything, and network opportunities. Joaquim Costa and I will be sharing practical advice alongside world-class experts. So visit our website link and join us to connect with other PM professionals. So that's it. Before we start, remember that you can ask in the YouTube comments box during the webinar. After the presentation, we will have a 20-minute Q&A session with Henry to answer some of them. So now let's get started. I'm excited to introduce you our presenter, Henry Latin. Henry is a product management coach who has successfully built three solo business and has guided over 280 product managers to promotions, dream roles, and launching their own business. So he inspires product leaders to use their skill for entrepreneurship, challenge the usual career path through his company. So that's it, Harry. It's with you.
Awesome. Thanks for the introduction. Good. So I'm just going to share my screen and do a short presentation. And then I think the idea is we're going to open up for Q&A after. There'll be a few interactive elements as well involved here. So let me just share my screen and just make sure you can actually see what is going on here before I start talking. 1 second, just move a few things around. Excellent. Daniel, could you just double check you can see my presentation for me? Could you just
going to
yeah,
okay, perfect. Now I can see. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, good. I'm not going to be able to see the video, but I'll that's fine. I'll jump in. If anything goes wrong, just interrupt me as we get started. Excellent. Okay, so today I'm going to focus on really talking about how you can define your own path from product to entrepreneurship, which may not be an option for some people, not something you thought about, might not be even a good fit for some people. But I think, as Danielle said, it's an alternative path that I'd like to share with you today. What we're going to cover in the presentation part of today, I'm going to share my journey and how to save yourself 10 years of making similar mistakes that I've made along that journey. Secondly, breaking down 3 common myths that hold many product people back when it comes to solopreneurship. And finally, just that first step to becoming an entrepreneur of any type. Now, before we jump in, just a couple of key points from really my 12 years in product and entrepreneurship. So, as Daniel said, bootstrapped 3 businesses. So that means 0 funding. I've also done a funded business as well, which failed as the 4th. I've coached 280 PMs and above that level as well, senior PMs and product leaders. And more recently, when I'm working with PMs starting their own business, I've had a 50% success rate of actually getting them to real sales and real revenue there. So my journey, and this will become clear why this is important. I share this a little bit later. I started my career really actually during university, I think about 10 to 12 years ago now, asking myself the following question: right, how can I gain the freedom to travel, which is something I was passionate about, to work one-on-one, and to work on things that really mattered to me? And my first hypothesis was, hey, I've read about this startup thing going on. I think a startup is going to help me achieve that. So went on a solo trip. I was in Brazilian Amazon by myself back in 2012. Decided to start my first business called Backtracker. 2 months later, got back to the UK to really start building that startup and realized I had pretty quickly absolutely no idea what I was doing, but I felt that, hey, this startup thing, it seems like the right path to gain my freedom. Right now, I have to work for somebody. I can sort of craft my own future there. Backtracker raised investment. We went through an incubator, even got some nice press features, which is a nice boost to the ego, but made every mistake possible. And ultimately, 2 years later, that startup failed. And in the aftermath, and also towards the end of that journey, I found myself probably the nearest to depression I've ever been. Really lost. Why? Because I'd lost touch with why I actually started that business. I started by saying, well, a startup's going to buy me freedom. I wanted to spend my time, building product, interacting with customers, learning, working hard, but working my own schedule. And instead, I found myself just stuck in meetings all day. I started the business to be able to travel, to work from anywhere, but instead I was stuck in London. I remember midwinter going around to investor meetings, potential hires, right? If anyone's been on the tube in London for more than half an hour, you know what I'm talking about. Just sort of unpleasant and again, not aligned with why I started the business. I wanted to build something that felt sort of under the control of the team, little as in control as a business can be. Obviously, it's very uncertain, whatever kind of business we build. But instead, I found myself just nudged by investors, by mentors, by my own ego as well, to push us to try and raise, $1 million. I remember was the number talked about, to grow at all costs, not even worry about how we make money, and just put a huge amount of pressure on to grow that business. Because back then, cult of growth, right? This was the time of Facebook skyrocketing. That was the thing to do. Now, I don't mind stress. I don't mind hard work at all. But stress when you feel things are out of control, but things that don't align with what you ultimately want, that was really, really tough. As I said, I think that's probably the worst mental place that I've ever been in during that first business. And ultimately, I was suffering from what I call purpose drift. All the reasons I started the business were no longer there. And I felt that I was just drifting away from that. And as I said, every business is tough, and I'm not scared of that. But you have to have that long-term goal in mind to motivate. You have to have that purpose to sort of keep you going. And I'd ultimately lost that by the last sort of 6 months of Backtracker. So initially, I thought startup's going to give me freedom. It's going to give me fame, millions of dollars, freedom to travel, do what I want, when I want. 2 years later, with the experience of Backtracker, I realized, well, that's not the case. And I'll talk about some stats to back that up later. It wasn't the case for me. It doesn't seem the case for other people either. So after Backtracker failed, I said, well, hey, I've learned this product thing. Why don't I try working as a PM and sort of climb up whatever that product career looks like? It's going to give me great salary, interesting work, freedom to set direction of the products I work on. And instead, I found, as I'm sure many of you have found, endless meetings, stuck in a feature factory where you're sort of told what to work on, whatever your level, whether it's head of products done before or PM. Lifestyle inflation. Sure, you get a higher salary, but you're just spending to justify ultimately being unhappy. At least in my case, unhappy with the work that I was doing, unhappy with the life that I'd created. Poor health. I was drinking more, eating badly, exercising less because of the stress and sort of general unhappiness with that journey. 60-hour weeks and a load of stress. I'm sure many of you can relate to these things, unfortunately. Okay, so I said, well, that's not going to work either. At least for me, not going to work. Right? Doesn't seem to suit me. So third time lucky, right? Fingers crossed. I said, all right, well, why don't I do a bit of freelancing, give myself a bit of extra time, and then I'm going to wait for a great idea to come, and I'm going to wait for an amazing co-founder to build a business with, and that's going to be it. That's going to work out. That's going to get me towards freedom of time and some level of financial freedom, right? Not worrying about paying the bills. And then this proceeded to happen. Went on for a little bit longer than that. This is really sort of 2014, 2015 to 2020. right? So my 6 wasted years, I would say, climbing the product career a bit, dabbling with freelancing, and really dipping my toe with entrepreneurship. Half-baked ideas. So, I'd write things in my journal or sort of get a rough idea about out on paper, do nothing with it. I might have conversations with co-founders, but never really finding alignment, never really finding an idea to pursue. An endless list of excuses. I'll share some of them later about why I didn't need to just commit and start something. And I'd maybe develop a couple of ideas, but do so in isolation, right? Never test them out, never actually ask somebody to pay for it. Really just play the entrepreneur, right? Not the real thing, just the idea of it or dipping my toe a little bit. And that didn't work either. So first I tried a startup. That didn't work. I tried climbing the product career ladder. That didn't work. I then waited for the perfect idea, the perfect co-founder to come, and surprise, surprise, that didn't work either. So I went back to the drawing board, and this is 2020 now. And I said, well, how can I build a different business, right? One that actually creates true freedom in some form, right? For me, it's freedom of time. Financial freedom means, for me, enough to pay the bills. It can mean different things for different people. And I realized I've really just been approaching the whole thing wrong. I'd learned a lot on my journey, for sure, in product and entrepreneurship, but my approach was ultimately wrong. And my light bulb moment, really my epiphany, I remember, true story, January the 1st, 2020, every year I will do a review of the year before. So I've been writing a journal for about 10 years now, every day. I'll review that and sort of just analyze themes. I won't go into the whole thing I do for that, but anyway, generally analyze it and see what I can learn from it. And I realized I've been dipping my toe with ideas. I've been making excuses ultimately. And I remember writing down very clearly, nobody is coming for me. Nobody is going to help with this business other than me. I need to make this happen. Right, I needed to get rid of all the excuses and really try and craft a new kind of business, right? Avoid all the mistakes I'd made, not just with Backtracker, but also with these half attempts I'd really made up until then. And what I stumbled upon was this concept of micro business. Now, what is a micro business? Micro business is something we keep deliberately small with no funding, usually solo founded, doesn't need to be, but usually solo founded, and profitable from very early on. And within 4 months of that journal entry, so this is coming to April 2020, I built a micro business to profitability. That business, ProdMBA, is still running now. Rather than in person like Backtracker, I could do this fully remote. Rather than VC driven, right, about growth and raising loads of money, I bootstrapped it. So zero, I think maybe $30, $50 to get it started. With no co-founders, I did it as a solopreneur. Rather than the cult of growth, going after incremental growth, being happy, just saying that as long as it's going in the right direction, then that is fine. Rather than working 14-hour days, could get it down to 4-hour days, although a lot of hard work in the first year. But yeah, get that freedom of time, because I wasn't doing meetings and team members and all of the stress that comes with that. Backtracker made zero over 2 years, lost a lot of money, but made zero. ProdMBA, year 1 got to 50K profit, so able to pay myself and cut a very low cost of living, which I deliberately kept low. And that quickly climbed up to 250K revenue per year, and that's about 200K pounds in profit by year 3. So why did it work, and why did micro businesses generally work? Why do I strongly believe that these are the best path towards freedom of time and financial freedom in some form? Firstly, let's look at the ingredients here. So when I say deliberately small, what does that mean? It means less management, and that means more time back to you. It's not just the hiring. It's not just the one-on-ones you have to have. It's the thinking about what you need people to do, aligning with them, what happens if someone's not delivering, firing people, all of this stress and people management equals more of your time. When we say no funding, what does that mean? It means fewer stakeholders. It means that you are in control of your business 100%. You don't have investors slowly eating away at that and then having a say. You don't have conflict with other co-founders. And generally, we're going to see a much higher success rate because we're not pushing for 10x growth every year like we would if we had venture capital. Thirdly, solo founded. It sounds scary, and it was scary for me starting a solo business, but it creates extreme ownership, right? There's nobody to hope that to pray that your co-founder does something. Extreme ownership leads to action. I always said, I don't know how to do sales, I don't know how to do marketing. If you're doing a solo business, you got to learn those things, and it leads to action, and that leads to results. And finally, profitable from very early on. By actually focusing on profitability, that's what's going to get you to financial freedom. Because if you can make profit within the first month, you're pretty likely to be able to increase and scale that profit relatively quickly. And that means money in your pocket, right? It's not some, great, you're getting revenue in like a B2B startup, but oh, hey, your costs are 5 times what that is. This really leads to financial freedom rather than hoping someday you're going to get a massive payout from your business. And a micro business also means constraints. Constraints are seen in a negative light, but I see these as hugely empowering, right? It forces us firstly to be, rather than having, lofty vision, like we're going to, cure cancer, great, really powerful vision. This forces you though to actually take action, right? When we start with a very concrete, specific niche, a very specific problem, it's easier to see what the first few steps are rather than having this nice lofty vision that you never take action on. Secondly, because you don't have a load of money or time available, it forces you to genuinely develop minimal low-cost solutions, right? If you can do something without coding, great. That means you're going to get to value first. It means you're probably going to get to profitability first. Third, because you're going to be funding this yourself, you need to show that you can make money very early on. Very early on. We're talking days, maybe weeks at a maximum, because you have to self-fund the business. Fourth, with a micro business, you have to take action from day one. Again, there's no one going to do this stuff for you, right? You have to go and do it, and that ultimately leads to results. Fifth, with a micro business, you start generally doing things that don't scale, right? Start selling to your network, not building some clever content strategy that you're never actually going to get started. And finally, it nudges you towards automation and optimization before just hiring a load of people. Because, hey, what tends to happen in a business, the more people you hire, the more it boosts your ego, right? The more people you're managing, the more sort of senior you might look. And that is not necessarily the best way to get results. So yes, sometimes hiring makes a huge amount of sense. And yes, it can unlock that next level of growth, but micro businesses means you don't just immediately make that decision. Micro business also breaks these 3 myths that I see. It forces us to recognize, let's say, 3 key myths that I see holding many product people back from starting a business. Firstly, breaking that myth that a startup equals freedom. I said I had a bad experience. That doesn't mean everyone does, but we'll look at the stats shortly. It's very easy to see these headlines and think, wow, I want to be a startup founder. Look, they're changing the world, be in the Forbes under 30, these sort of world-changing CEOs. The top 2 are in jail, by the way. The bottom 2 have failed companies. This is ultimately an ego trip. I found this was a massive ego trip for me, this fame and glory, rather than actually looking at the reality of this. Fewer than 1% of US companies raise capital. So, we forget that there is 99% of businesses do not raise money, right? They are not VC-driven startups, right? It's just a tiny percentage that we tend to see because, hey, we work in tech. Most of these are small businesses. These are micro businesses going under the radar. Secondly, of those that do raise, only 30 to 40% raise a Series A round, right? They get to some level of product market fit where they can go, great, there's something here, we can start to scale that. We then see, many of these 65% raise Series B. And then of those Series B, the companies that raise Series B, 99% will survive in some form. So if you get through to Series A, you've got a decent chance of surviving. But if we look at ultimate results, Only 10% are considered successes, i.e. they pay back the money that was invested, right? So imagine there's a room of 10,000 new businesses, only 100 are going to raise money, 30 get to Series A, 20 to Series B, 1 or 2 will be considered successful. They actually recoup the investment out of roughly 10,000. Okay. That's not great stats. And even if you do raise money, growth targets are set so high that you're going to be pushed to make, I've had this myself, pushed to make decisions that really endanger the fundamentals of the business. We're seeing a lot of that now. People hired too fast, so they can't integrate culturally. They hired too fast before signs of product market fit. They make short-term decision to try and hit investment goals. And ultimately that backfires. And we've seen that with the massive round of layoffs over the last 24 months. Yeah, we've got, ultimately an 80 to 90% failure rate when it comes to startups. And, even worse, I've met founders, worked with founders who've sold businesses, a company in Germany, and they are deeply unhappy people from my experience and experience of many, podcasters, interviewers that interview these people, because, what are you going to do after? You're going to go and start another startup and go through the whole cycle again. Final point of this, ultimately impact starts with actions, not words. So it starts with, helping, your neighbor, your people around you. Helping just 10 people is better than hoping to help, 1 million people, but not actually delivering results for them. So if you want to have impact, startup, if you look at the stats, is not the way to do that, nor is it the way to get financial freedom. And it is definitely not the way to get freedom of time. The second myth that is really important to address in the product world, that the myth that more promotion equals freedom. The number one job, you might have seen this survey by CNBC, that people are planning to quit. Senior product managers, 66% are seeking a new job. They might stay in product management, but 66% want to change job. Now, I'd love to see all companies being product-led, giving you a load of autonomy, purpose, freedom with your work. But the reality is that the vast majority, my experience, about 90+%, Marty Kagan puts a similar figure, about 90% of companies are not product-led. Right? Product leadership is therefore, in reality, extremely tough, very long hours. It's a lot of stress. It's a lot of pushing what leadership wants, not what you want or believe, in very limited autonomy. And great, you get a high salary, but you got no time to spend it. You're too stressed to enjoy it. Really impactful survey results. I think Evie Brockwell, UK-based product leader, put a survey up and got 92% of respondents saying they had burnt out before as product people. Now, whether that source is reliable, if the sample size is big enough, it's broad enough, I think everyone here can relate to that if you work in product. We just consider these long hours, the burnout, to be quite normal in product because everyone else is in a similar situation. But just remember, that is not normal. It is not healthy, neither mentally nor physically, to have that kind of level of stress and burnout in the industry. Third myth, don't make the mistake I did, waiting for the perfect conditions to start a business. They're never going to come. Waiting for whatever perfect is extremely dangerous. It sort of creeps in with, we have good logical reasons why something won't work, usually quite hard to argue against. But again, a micro business really forces us to overcome those excuses and take actions. I can't start my big business because A, B, C, extremely common. And I call these clever people excuses because when it comes from senior product people, all of you are experienced. You're probably pretty smart to work in the industry. That can breed arrogance at worst, but at a minimum, an overconfidence in our thinking. We think, well, we're smart, therefore we can trust our logic, trust our thinking. Because you go, hey, I understand business, I understand strategy, I get product, more than the average person, because that's what I do day to day, right? Now that is true to some extent, but it also means that product people tend to look for complexity. They look for problems. They look to go, massive scale from day one, rather than just getting started. You tend to overanalyze as a group. You tend to not get started because of all the reasons and overanalysis. And, many times I'm sure you've seen small business owners get started, some small business down the road, maybe it's a doggy daycare, and you go, well, like, how the hell did they do that? And I never did it. Because they just said, look, I didn't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to get started. I don't have it all figured out, but let's see where it goes and adapt from there, which is a true product mindset, in fact. So beware these clever people excuses. And again, a micro business just forces us to cut the bullshit and get started ultimately. So how do we actually create a micro business? The theory is relatively simple. I have a worksheet that all of you can use. This is what I use with client, and I'm going to link this to all of you at the end of this presentation, so stick around for that. The theory is simple, right? It really just requires you to find an acute problem to solve, right? Look around you, look at your own to-do list, your calendar, speak to friends, family. What is a problem that's a real painkiller for a certain person? Secondly, just defining, well, who do we think that group is? Be quite specific here. We don't want to say, okay, we're going to, career growth is a problem for all product managers. Still quite broad, but what about for first-time product managers in a startup, for example? That's really specific group, very specific problem. Thirdly, we just come up with a solution, one that's not going to take years to build, like a course, a bootcamp, whatever it might be. Fourth, we want to create just a very simple business plan to understand if this solution can be profitable. Very basic maths, and that's, again, I'm going to share that in the worksheet with you, just to really see, well, can we get to profitability quite quickly? When can I get to what I call freedom day, the day that you're earning enough money to quit your job? Fifth, we then want to go, okay, well, how do we sell that solution? Because people don't want to buy a course or an e-commerce product. They want to buy the value, the benefits that you can offer them. So you want to craft an offer that's going to be really attractive to them. And finally, really simple, just go and pitch it to 10 people from that niche, right? Ideally in your network, people that you know, people that you have trust with, so that you can get some initial sales through the door. After that, it's simply a question of trying to scale that. Right? That's what is going to get your micro business going. However, I've used this with both ProdMBA and Breakfree to scale, start those businesses, get to profitability. ProdMBA, that was within 4 months. With Breakfree, that was within 10 days. Rob, really good example. One of my clients very recently, just a month ago, in fact, followed this process, came up with a problem, which was monthly budgeting for middle income UK families. What was his offer? Essentially a finance audit for about 500 quid, initially with some add-ons that he would do. Got his first sale within 3 days, got 4 sales from his network within around 10 days. Okay, put the theory into practice, made it happen. The reality is that, I'm going to send you this worksheet. I'm going to share this worksheet. I could even share a step-by-step video guide of how to put this all into practice, all the nuances of, how do we pick the right problem? How do we think of different, business plans to turn that into a profitable business? But 9 out of 10 of you will never get started. And let's say a handful, right? So 95 out of 100 will never pitch your solution, right? So a handful might come up with an idea, and very few are actually going to go and pitch that solution. Why? Because it's scary, right? It's really easy to put it off, to never get started. It's really easy to ideate, to come up with endless business plans, but never actually go and ask someone, are you willing to buy this off me? And for every Rob, there are a whole horde of people. Like, Cerie's one of my other clients. She said she's got endless ideas. She's super smart. She's got endless ideas for the last, 5 years, but never got started until she joined Breakfree. Alex, who, he's got started before, but he spent over a year working an idea, never got it out the door, never pitched it, was quite half-baked, and never tested, ultimately, again, is someone willing to pay for it. With Breakfree, he got to 1 sale within just 48 hours, right? A lot faster by following the right process and really putting this into practice. Now, why do I share those stories and I go deep, not go deeper into the theory, for example? Because it's not going to be the lack of skills or experience or lack of a complicated process that's going to prevent you building your own micro business, ultimately it's fear. Right? It's fear of getting started. It's going to hold you back. And it's fear of rejection that's going to prevent you getting to a sale. And if you get to a sale, that is what's going to unlock a huge amount of momentum and growth moving forward. So what we do at Breakthrough, and what I've done through coaching, again, nearly 300 PMs and running Breakthrough, getting people to start real businesses, is we focus very strongly on building momentum, getting you from day one to get moving, to start getting over those two fears. So how do we create a micro business? Yes, it's about putting those steps into practice. The big trick is a really simple one. Start, right? Just get started. Specifically, and I'm going to introduce a challenge right now for anyone thinking of starting their own business. I'd like you to reach out to a friend, family member, or colleague and just ask them for €1, $1, £1, whatever the equivalent is. Specifically asking them to commit that $1 as an investment in your new business, right? Why does this matter? The money doesn't matter. Obviously, it's $1, whatever. It's about getting over that fear of getting started, that fear of rejection, getting over your own ego that allows you to make all these excuses, and also to overcome this sort of arrogance and ego protection, I would say. To basically admit, I'm fine not becoming the CEO of some huge AI or blockchain startup. I'm going to start small. I'm going to start humble. I'm going to publicly commit to this and get moving and build momentum. And the public commitment will ultimately make you realize that starting, right, just going and asking somebody for something just isn't that scary. It's a muscle you need to practice. And it's a small act that has an outsized value when it comes to asking for a real sale, which you will have to do at some point. I've done this with all of our students. So we've had Breakthrough in its current form, only had 10 people come through so far. All of them as table stakes, right? They are not allowed to work with us unless they do this. Have done this uncomfortable challenge and said it was actually incredibly revealing, incredibly powerful exercise to do, because it felt so uncomfortable, but was also so easy once they'd done it. So here's what I'd like anyone that wants to start a business, here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to reach out to 3 friends, family, or colleagues, and just use this format. And I'll post this on the chat after the presentation so you can copy and paste. Say, hey, Henry, or whoever it is, I'm launching a new business. I want you on board as a symbolic investor advisor. Would you invest just $1 to help me get started? Almost always they're going to go, yeah, sure. Some people might go, well, how come $1? Just respond with something like, I just want you on board as support and to keep you updated on my progress. They are going to go, happy to support. Okay, nobody ever got rejected for this, right? You might get a couple of people ignore your message. They're just busy. Most are very supportive. Then you're going to share a direct link. You can do this with PayPal, your banking app, whatever it is. I use Revolut, so here's an example. I can just create a payment link, new business investment, set the fee to £1, create link, and just share it with them so there's no friction, right? So here's a link to my PayPal bank, add the link, done. And again, I always ask people, I want to see screenshots of this. This is table stakes for us. If you're serious about starting a business, so I would suggest if you are as well, whether you want to work with Breakthrough or not, I'll talk about that shortly. Go and do this. Don't take shortcuts. And this is going to be have an outsized impact on actually getting you started with your business. So just coming towards the end of the presentation, what have we covered so far? Beware startups. If you really believe you're aware of the stats, you still want to start a startup, great, go for it. Second, beware the product career ladder. It can be a real trap, a hedonic trap, more money, more status, but ultimately less happiness. Thirdly, beware waiting for perfect conditions like I did for about 6 years. Fourth, if you want freedom, micro business is, I strongly believe, the way to achieve that. How do we get there? Again, I'll share that worksheet with you. You can just go through that. That's the theory. But the practice, the reality is that you need to start with what I call a micro commitment, just asking somebody for $1 £1, €1, whatever it is. Now, final thing, just putting what I do out there as well, and ask from my side, right? If you're actually committed, if you're really serious about creating your own micro business and unlocking more freedom, you can work with me through Break Free. So here's what I do, here's what I offer with that business. I work with you one-on-one. We develop an idea from zero. You can also come up with existing ideas, but no need to come in with an idea. And we get you to your first sale and real revenue in your pocket within 48 hours. We had a 50% hit rate with that within the sprint. It's a repeatable, proven process. You can use this for multiple business ideas over the rest of your career. You're going to have that accountability and support. I literally WhatsApp you to chase you up to make sure this happens. You get ongoing support as well as you go from one sale to scale. We have a really nice active community there, and part of that is community access. You can interact with other aspiring entrepreneurs, right? Those who have said a product career is not for me, and actually micro business, solopreneurship, that is the path that I want to take. So exclusive offer for the community. Usually this is €4,500. If you book a call, however, if you put down a 20% deposit on the call when we have that, I'm going to discount that price. So take €2,000 off that. So it's 2,499. And I always have a money back guarantee in place. If you go through the whole process and you are not happy, you get your money back, 0 questions asked. So it saves you €2,000. But because this is very one-on-one, it's very hands-on, I only work with 2 clients per week. So I'm putting this offer down. I'm going to share my calendar link for you to book a call. If you want to take that up, if you book a call by tonight, then that offer will stand, but it will expire at midnight. So just a summary there of the offer. And if you do want to take action, just please book a call using the link below. I'm going to share that very shortly. And I think final thing, if you're serious about this, just don't make the mistake I did. Whether you work with us at Break Free or you go on your own, don't stand on the sidelines, please, like I did for 6 years. Please take action for yourself, for your family, for your own well-being. So if you're ready to start a business, get out of that 9-to-5 trap, then, as I said, you can book a call. Final thing, like Alberto, right, through that sprint process, felt he was able to break through the sort of invisible barrier, take concrete action, got to a 5.5K sale, 3x the number of sales leads over the last few weeks as well. So as I said, you can book a call, and I'll share that link very shortly. That's it. So thank you for joining. It's in your hands now to move forward, whether you want to take action or not. And thank you for listening to my short story. I think we're going to jump into some questions there.
Thank you, Harry. So we have some questions here. I don't know if you can see the comments. Very good. So the first is about our group. I did a poll last week, and the majority of the people in the group, they don't want to start their own business, just 35%. So what's your advice for the undecided people, or even people that don't want to go, want to stay like a director or VP of product, working to other people? What's your best advice for these people?
So if you're undecided about starting your business, I think that, look, there are some people that are just not interested, by the way. I think there's a personality type thing. Some people absolutely love being part of a team, and that's great. I think if that works for you, awesome. Product career is probably the path. If you're undecided, first thing is just be aware that your ego, and I talk from experience here, is trying to protect you, right? So it's saying no, actually, I'm happy. It's trying to convince you, I'm happy with product. In some cases, not all. I'm happy with the product career. It pays well, it's comfortable, it's interesting work. I don't want, why would I take the risk? So there's a fear element there that's just worth have that conversation with yourself. Is it fear driving that thought? Or is it genuinely, I'm not sure. I don't know what it entails. From what Henry said, it sounds pretty pretty like a tough ride. And then the second thing is just remembering that, I always say this to my clients: you are not wedded to your business ideas, right? You're not married to them. I mean, in marriage, you can get divorced, right? But my point is that you, just by starting or testing out an idea, doesn't mean you're, oh my God, I'm an entrepreneur for life now. It's done. I have to quit my job. Absolutely not. Most of the clients I'm working with are still in product roles. Like Alex, I had to use an anonymous photo because he's still in work. You mitigate risk with a micro business by starting, again, very, very, very small, focusing on profitability very early on, delivering value with a small group of clients, and then slowly scaling it up. And at some point you might go, hey, this is not for me. I prefer my day job. I don't want the stress of, it's just overwhelming for me. Others are going to go, this is exactly what I want to do. I know it's going to be a difficult journey, but I'm committed to it. I'm going to build up on the side and at some point quit my job. Right? So there's no risk there. I never suggest quit your job and start your own business. Always mitigate risk, build up savings, stay in work, whatever it is, to not sort of bet everything on one idea.
Very good. I did this path as well. 6 years ago, I was working to other company, and I did an MVP. At the same time, I was working the company. So when I have my first 3, 4, 5 customers, I quit my job and was 100% running my own business. So it's a way to mitigate your risk as well. Very good. So there is another question from our community. What are the best channels for acquiring clients for a product consultancy, aside from the content marketing, which takes most?
So best way to acquire clients for a product consultancy. Yeah, it's a difficult time. The timing is tough for product consultants because budgets are relatively fixed at the moment. Most companies, right, are very tight on budget. That means that they're planning, let's say December for the rest of the year. So there's less room to say, oh, I really like what Daniel offers, but we've committed our budget already. We can't, bring Daniel in April, for example. So there's that constraint. The second constraint is many companies have let people go, and it doesn't look good for them to bring external people in. So there's a slight sort of wave against it. Now, I'm not a product consultant, and I don't acquire clients for that business that doesn't exist, right? So I'm maybe not the best person to ask, but I think the general principle is, in the current climate, content is always going to be king. It's always the way to scale, whether that's LinkedIn posts or YouTube channels or a podcast. My recommendation is always to start with relationships. So what does that mean? It can be simple things like just commenting on a LinkedIn post, right? So, target, let's say, sorry, Danielle, I'm just going to use you because I can see you. Say Danielle is, head of products of a company you might want to work with. Comment on his LinkedIn post, interact with him, interact with the people he's probably managing, start building that relationship. You could go, oh, well, hey, why don't I just launch a podcast, because it's going to give me access to the kind of people that might hire me. Interview Danielle, for example, right? Get him on a podcast. Reach out to people for virtual coffees, go to meetups. I think it's going back to that sort of trying to build a one-on-one relationship with people is I always suggest for any kind of business, in fact, to start, and then later, it's the long-term play of investing in content strategy.
Very good. So there is another advice that people are asking for you. So for product managers looking to follow in your footsteps, what are the top 3 pieces of advice you would give to effectively prepare for and success in the entrepreneur world?
3 pieces of advice. The first one that comes to mind would be to get as close to entrepreneurship as possible. So if you can move into a startup, then it's great experience. And hey, if you're not the founder, if you're receiving a salary and you're along that fun, exciting ride of a startup, then awesome. It's super exciting. You're going to learn a lot at a minimum, and you're going to get very close to many of the elements of entrepreneurship, which I think are primarily psychological challenges than a question of knowledge or experience, unless clearly you're in like a biotechnology industry or something, right? It's about that mental toughness. It's about ability to see objectively, zoom out, to be resilient. So first advice would be, can you get into a startup, for example? I think second thing is just go get started with something. If you've had an idea, just test it out. That can start with you all know, your product people, you know how to do discovery calls. Why not go run discovery calls? Second, why not go put it on a landing page? Use ConvertKit. You're going to have a landing page up within 2 minutes. Why not collect some emails with an offer statement? Work with ChatGPT to say, look, here's my solution. Give me 10 ideas for a really nice offer statement. Great. Pull some ingredients from that. Put an offer on a landing page. Email sign up for the beta. Gather emails on that. And part of that, again, going, okay, well, business modeling, strategic planning. These kind of questions are going to come up, and by just testing an idea, putting it out in the wild, you're training yourself to start moving towards taking that serious, or getting effective as an entrepreneur. And the third piece of advice is that you cannot be prepared for entrepreneurship. And what is that? How do you translate that into actionable advice? My advice there would be, look, you're never going to be prepared. Therefore, don't act like you only have one bet to place. You do not have one idea and you put that idea out, and if it fails, it's the end of the world. It is a process. It is a process like product, where we test an idea, we see what happens, we learn from it, we go back to the drawing board, we iterate, and then we go back again. You go in with that mentality of, look, everything's just repetitions, like in the gym, repetition, practice. Some point, one of those ideas is going to work, but by just treating it as a process, you're not going to lose motivation, but feel like you failed, for example. You're just going to keep going, keep improving, keep learning. So 1, get close to a startup if you can. Second, test out ideas. I think third thing, mindset shift away from failure towards experimentation and process.
Great. So Joaquin has a question. What common mistakes should aspiring solopreneurs avoid when starting their own SaaS business?
I want to be wary of answering this because I'm not a SaaS person. I'm just thinking of principles that apply across. We talk about B2B and B2C as separate. The principles are very common, right? The main difference is B2B, we're generally dealing with two different. We might have a buyer, right? The person that actually pays for the product, and a user, right? Head of HR, the user might be a freelancer, for example. And I think that's probably the best advice. Because as a solopreneur, the advice being focus on where the money is. If you're a solopreneur, you have to get to profitability quickly, because if you don't, you are taking on that cost yourself. Right? As the business grows, you start increasing costs. That's coming out of your pocket, right? So advice for a solopreneur with SaaS would be focus on the buyer, get a financial commitment from them, and only when you get that should you then move forward and say, yeah, this is, there's something here that we want to we want to build out. Otherwise, you can find yourself in a very common situation with digital tech businesses. You might even have a great product, but you can't sell it, or you can't sell it at a price where you can cover your costs. Some point, that business is going to go bankrupt.
Very good. Thank you, Harry. So there are all the questions. I think we read all them here on the comments. Harry, would you like to say something about we shared your link of your schedule your call with you. Can you talk more about this?
Yeah, sure. And I'm also going to share, Joachim, I'll share this on the chat. The document I mentioned. So this is the worksheet that I use with clients to basically help you develop business ideas. So I think that's going to be effective. And yeah, if you want to book a call, as I said, essentially what we're doing is initial conversation to see whether you want to do a sprint with me. So the sprint is very focused. It can be 48 hours intensive. It can be spread over a work week as well. Well, I'm working with you, like really on your team, developing an idea, and then we take it all the way through to actually pitching and trying to make a sale by the end of the sprint process. Why do we do that approach? One, if we get to sell, it's going to give you the momentum and belief to go on and scale the business. Secondly, it's going to give you the accountability to make sure you actually do this and don't, have an idea that you just put off for another year, 5 years, 10 years, or many cases forever, right? So yeah, if you're serious about, you've made enough excuses, you want to take action, then let's suggest book your call and seeing, whether there's a good fit there.
Okay, I'm sharing the link right now. So the document is here. You can see the comments. And well, that's it. So Harry, do you want to give another word here before we
finish? Thank you too for hosting. I think final comment, entrepreneurship is a difficult journey. I think solopreneurship is difficult, can be lonely at times, but ultimately it does lead to a more free life, I would say, and that means can mean whatever that means to you. For me, that's spending time with my son, family, surfing in the mornings, a few days a week. It means that for me. For you, I think you need to define what is that you're really aiming for, and then see whether you want to then start a business, a solo business.
Great, Henry. I can endorse everything you said because I did this path 6 years ago. And yes, all this freedom that we have, no timetable, stay more time with our family is incredible. So thank you very much, Henry, for sharing your experience. So if you want to know more about what Henry is doing, there are the documents here. You can schedule your call with Henry as well and know more about this. It's not easy, it's hard, but the benefits in the long term are very good for our life. So it's totally different. It's a new way of life, I can say, and it changed my life for sure. So that's it. Thank you very much, Harry.
Thanks, Daniel.
Bye.
Speak soon.